methodology, the approach to methodology, the reasons, that, the learners are the same everywhere. The needs are the same everywhere. But the circumstances change. The context where you're teaching, the students need to relate to that. Instead of, excuse me, what is the way to the post office? Because that's something that students here will never need to do. They will never need to ask in English anybody, excuse me, where is the way? So that she showed a film about that, somehow how things are done. And I was quiet. Normally I'm not quiet, but I was quiet. And she said, why did you not say anything about this film? He says, I replied, it's like a fairy tale for me. This will never happen in my classroom. So, this is totally unreal. But then I was forcing myself to see, okay, so how can these ways be used for students to find it useful? And so I had developed this proposal and I wanted to do my M.Ed, but for some reasons I was not able to do it, and then I decided to do it as a research project myself. I'm known as Mother Spelt, and my work in Spelt is well known, but my work for large classes, learner autonomy, is known outside Pakistan, but people in Pakistan do not know much about my work.
Okay, and how, related to what you're saying, how do you cater to a class of 100 students who have different learning styles?
You see, the thing is you're talking, I would say that one of my most classic articles, which is internationally published, is individualization techniques in large classes.
Okay.
Now, if you go to that, you will find that the basis is the same, but the materials and the methodology that I have used is not the same.
Okay.
How? You see, in a small class you'll say, Dave, why are you feeling sad today? They say, well, my mother was not well, da-da-da-da-da. Now, I can never have that kind of personal interaction with 100 students in a class.
And that's a big issue.
Yeah, but then I made them all wear their name tags, so I could, you said, can you answer the question? She'd look at somebody at the back and that person would look at another person at the back and another person, and nobody would be answering. But if I had the name tags on, then I could see right to the end and say, Fawzia, can you tell me this? And so everybody would be attentive because they know that they could be called. So, that's just one way of individualization in large classes, where you put your name tag, and the name tag is not a fashion. It's big letters which I can see when I see at the back of the class.
Yeah.
It's not just a fashion or a way of doing a workshop. So that kind of thing. Then I said, how do I get to know them? Then I did something which was known as a profile card. And the profile card was things that you like, things you don't like, and what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what are your strong points, what are your weak points. Now, a lot of students, especially girls, because I've always taught in a girls' college, have never thought about themselves, have never thought about what are their strong points and what are their weak points.
Really?
And the weak point does not mean ice cream. Weak point means that I get flustered easily. That's a weak point. So you're talking about character traits. So you have to know yourself to talk about that.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, but this kind of awareness is not given and allowed to women, at least. Not even men. Nobody thinks.
Yeah. Critical
the important characteristic of Pakistan is that nobody thinks.
And I think it relates to what you said about governments wanting that, or just establishments wanting a public that they can maneuver, which has been happening since Roman times, using theater, using everything that
Yeah.
was available. So if people do critical thinking, then they're going to say
No,
what
but
is
critical
happening.
thinking is something which upsets the apple
Mm.
cart.
Yes. Mm.
There's a very famous couplet of Habib Jalib in which he says, Ayub Khan would say, 10 crore ye gadhe, jinka naam hai awam, inki khench do zama, inka moon do gala. So that is the mentality that we work with, that the people in general do not matter,
Mm.
and you are not, the government is not there to facilitate them. Government is there to give more and more power and money to those bureaucrats who are ruling the Pakistani world.
Mm. Yeah, so there's like Noam Chomsky writes about manufacturing public consent, on how groupthink happens and how it's created through everything that is available, whether it's media, whether it's consumerism.
Yeah,
So sab mila ke there's that
yeah,
particular direction that people feel that is, this is how it works. They're like, this is how society is. But it's like all of it is created by human beings, the way people interact, the way they live. Everything is a design, right? Like the way
Yeah.
houses we live in
yeah,
are by design. So it's not like it just happened by itself. It was consciously created.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So when we look at the past, just a few questions to wrap up. When we look at, before we go into that, let's talk a little more about Spelt and your work at Spelt, what is Spelt in more
Yeah.
detail?
Well, I think Spelt was mainly born because of the realization
Hmm.
that the government is not interested in education.
Hmm.
And teacher training is the most important aspect of education. If a teacher is well educated and can give the students, can help them develop their potential, if the teacher is able to help them in their needs,
Hmm.
if the teacher is able to adapt the materials to the needs of the learners, only then education will be successful. But an untrained teacher,
It's not
through gut feeling, is able to do a lot. There have been lots of very, very good teachers without training, but then they've been on a hit and miss kind of thing, and some have got more sense, others do not have that kind of sense. So, if you teach same thing, the same way for 20 years, then your experience in terms of training is only 1 year. Because that's where you started and that's where you're ending. So teaching 20 years doesn't mean that you are an experienced teacher.
And most places are
So
what are your
that's how
years
Spelt
of
was
experience?
born, with the help of more colleagues like me, and primarily Fawzia Shamim, Abbas Hussain, and Anisa Mumtaz and myself. We said, okay, the government is not going to help us, so we will help ourselves. Now that in 1984 was a novel idea, in the sense that people thought that only the Goras can be tutors, they can be trainers. Whereas we feel that somebody like, for instance, Fawzia Shamim or myself, we have the same kind of degrees that people have abroad. Okay? We are more capable of helping our environment because we know what kind of problems our students are facing, which the Goras do not know. For instance, say, large classes. You know what you can do? You divide your class into two, send one out to field work and teach the other half, and then vice versa. Now where does the field work come from? Where does it go? Who takes them to field work? Where is the finances for it? Or even if you're saying, okay, go outside and do some kind of work in your grounds. Well, first you have to have that kind of ground. But can you imagine half the college outside on the ground and other half studying? Is that a way of solving that problem? But because he's a Gora and he's saying it, we have a slavish mentality. We agree to that instead of coming to somebody like us saying, okay, so what kind of solutions are you thinking about? So the background of SPELT is that we are there to address the problems of the teachers. Teaching teachers how to teach English better. We're not teaching them English, mind you.
How to teach it.
How to teach English. And one of the very well-known writers of the past, Henry Widdowson, SPELT interviewed him and said, if you have an English teacher whose English is absolutely perfect, would you, and another whose English is not perfect but is trained,
Which one?
if you want to have those two, and which one would you hire? And he said, I would hire the trained teacher. Because as the trained teacher goes along, his English will improve. Whereas a person who knows English but does not know how to teach English cannot do the same kind of work. So that's how important training is. But that's something, you can't have injections. Today, this big organization from abroad has come, given that much of money. So they have their projects and they have their own agenda. So they come and give you a small injection and go away. And then there is no follow-up and that doesn't work. So much has been done in Pakistan. But it all comes to naught because there is no follow-up, there is no proper recognition of teacher training in Pakistan. There is no proper acknowledgement of need for professionalism in Pakistan. So professionals are not valued. That is the issue.
Okay. So what life lessons do you have for people who want to bring change? I know I read about back in the day there were hunger strikes for teachers, and this podcast is about people who are bringing change in different spheres. Like I try to do that through my law and writing. And what have you learned works, what have you learned doesn't?
I feel that initially the teachers who want to bring change have to seriously, honestly have a will to change. Because looking at my own example, I would say that I was determined when I came back that I would show how these activities and these methodologies can be used in a large class also with adaptation. The difference between me and others who had been, there are lots of people, many people have been sent on British Council scholarships and have done these things. But when they come back, they say nothing can be done and we'll continue same as ever. But I could not, when I came back to my class, I could not say, open your book on page so and so, and the poet is saying this. Now do you understand? And they will all say, yes, we understand, but they have understood nothing. So I could not do that. So I had to prove that these
it
things,
works.
It works. So there is a series of my articles which I have done, at different stages of my life. Beginning myself, for 3 years I taught English as a foreign language, 50-hour course, 2 hours, 3 times a week after my classes.
Okay. That's a lot.
Myself. But 50 hours. So began and ended, and just now while I'm going through my papers, I have come across so many letters from my students saying, we like this and we have this and we have been able to understand. So it is possible. If a proper
Yeah.
guidance is given to them, they can do things and they can learn.